Think we got this. Let's make sure. Why is it not going? Should be working. I don't think it's working. Stop that one more time. Ah, there we go. Hey, Nady, Factory Life. How's it going, guys? All right. I thought I didn't have it working. It's working. So apologies, guys. I was meaning to have this up earlier, but I screwed up with the time zones, and then I screwed up with the templates, and that's why we're here now. So, evening from UK. Yeah, it's, I got to get used to the time zones myself. 4 hours from where I used to live. So let's go full screen here. Just give me 1 sec. There we go. That's better. Now I can read it. You guys can hear me fine. I have to ask, it's only my second streaming. Does it sound all right? Hiya, James, RTA, Shane. Cheers, everybody. Let me just get the brew that is true. Very cool. There we go. Guys, it's been an awesome week for VR. I mentioned it on the VR show today. The gaming, and I think you guys can attest to that. It's been fantastic, and I had a few people ask, what do you mean you didn't play Windlands 1 Epics? Why didn't you play that game? And like I mentioned in the video, for whatever reason, just passed me by, but Windlands 2, what a frickin' blast. Also got the aim controller, that's in today's show as well, which way heftier, guys, than I thought it was originally. I was expecting it to be a lot lighter. Pleasantly surprised. Like I said, just a great, great week for virtual reality. Sound is perfect, loud and clear. Awesome. Guys, the official cheers. There we go. So yeah, anything on the table, guys. You got to go to work there, RTA. That's too bad, but yeah, we'll catch you again. Anything's on the table you guys want to chat about VR-wise, gaming, hardware, stuff from the show. I know it's a little awkward. I posted the show about 45 minutes, an hour ago, and I'm doing a live stream kind of right over top of that, but that's okay. I wanted to make sure I got this one in because I've meant to get a few up and running, and that didn't quite work out, so... Awesome. So yeah, any questions, fire them at me. Otherwise, I'm just going to check real quick here, see if the browser is working. You guys can see everything browser-wise too. Template. Let's go to VR. There we go. That works. Awesome. Now, I'm getting a little bit of lag, I think, on the chat window. Let's see if I can do something here about that. If you guys saw the setup that I got here, it's pretty ridiculous right now. I've got 3 monitors, my laptop. Just didn't want to take any chances. So here we go. Let's move this up to right there. And let's see. Anyways, good enough. There we go. So who's getting a Santa Cruz? Yeah, that is the big temptation. What do you guys think? Oculus Go, get that, or just hold off on the Santa Cruz? And I understand they're not same exact kind of market segment, But the Santa Cruz, those dual controllers, the 6 degree of freedom, that's calling out to me. Whereas the Oculus Go, I don't want another device like this one here, which I haven't used in probably about 8 months because I don't have a phone. Now, granted, the Oculus has it built in, but is it going to sit around idle? I don't know. The games are pretty good from what I can see. It's good in BC. Nice. You can see browser. Awesome. Yeah, so my thinking, though, I'm leaning towards probably waiting for the Santa Cruz. In terms of a want list, Pimax is definitely on it. Santa Cruz on it. And the Vive Pro, just price-wise, I like the idea of the resolution. But do I take the plunge there? I may hold off HTC just until the next gen, since I've got the regular one already. Yeah, exactly. I have the Go, but you will get the Santa Cruz, Daniel. And you've also got PlayStation VR and Oculus. I want more, not less. Yeah. You know, some people, I know, it's not a positive, the Pimax, with everybody. I've heard negativity towards it, and Swivivor said it best. As long as your expectations are in line, right, with a sub $1,000 device, if they can get that field of view, that's, to me, what I'm so freaking curious about. I want to know firsthand what that field of view looks like, right? I've heard some people say there's a bit of warping, bit of this, bit of that, but what does it actually look like to my own eyes? Do I think PlayStation VR will support the first two? That's a good question. The question is, do you think PlayStation VR will support the first two headsets and games in terms of future one, I imagine you're talking about? I think so. I think backwards compatibility, it's one of those tricky things, right? If you look at Xbox, they kept a degree of backwards compatibility. PlayStation, it did on the PlayStation 3 initially. Remember, we had the hardware, then we had kind of a software, which is the version that I have, the 80 gig with the PS2 backwards compatibility, and then pretty much dropped for PlayStation 4, right? So yeah, that's a good question. I would imagine with VR, given the market size, they would probably ensure that it's compatible, and it'll be, resolution changes, because it's obviously going to be more significant probably than having a PS4 versus a PS4 Pro. That would be my guess. Getting an Oculus or a Vive Pro, what do you recommend is the question. If money's no object, I would probably go for the Vive Pro. To me, though, cost-wise, it's just a little bit of a hurdle for that boost in resolution. But if you didn't have one and you had to choose between the Rift and the Vive Pro, yeah, I'd probably go with the Vive Pro. Now, I say that, and mostly what I'm using nowadays, and it's because it's a little bit easier with my ceiling mount, is the Oculus Rift. I still use my Vive. I still love the Vive. PlayStation's getting a lot of play, the PlayStation VR, but I'd have to say the Rift is getting probably the majority of the play. Jimmy Dean, whoa, where is your PayPal tip link under each show? Don't even know what that is. Yeah, like I said, I'm a complete noob when it comes to streaming. This is my second one. I just wanted to make sure that I had some kind of template that I was happy with. So hopefully, but yeah, much appreciated, guys. Don't feel obligated. Like I said, there's lots of ways to support the channel, and I'm appreciative just for you guys watching, hanging out. But either way, much appreciated. So let's take a look at some questions here. CV2, yeah, is a few years off. Agreed, Daniel. We talked about ray tracing in VR. I've talked about it. Ray tracing is the question. Have we talked about it in VR? And my thought with it, and this is kind of what they're looking to do, is rather than having ray tracing replace raster rendering completely, they're using it in isolation or, for portions of the rendering. The ones that we saw most recently, of course, is using it for reflections, right? I think it was Battlefield was the demo. We're seeing much better reflections. And there's probably other areas. That's kind of where I see in VR, though, it getting used. When they do decide to take that plunge, I don't think this gen of RTX is there yet performance-wise. But when they get to that point, I think they're going to be able to use it in much the same way. It'll just be components, right? Maybe it's interfaces, control panels in game, portions, reflections, etc. But right now, we're having a heck of a time on some titles just getting the 90 hertz refresh rate to work. Use my Rift the most too. Yeah, you know, and these are just damn good controllers. What can I say? I love my Vive wands. There are titles where the Vive wand, I think, one-ups the touch. But by and large, these, you know, to me are the better controllers. They're easy, convenient, and they kind of mimic hand gestures a little bit more. You know, you feel when you're tightening your fist that you're really tightening your fist. Whereas the Vive wand, to me, games where you're using, you know, cylinder-style objects, swords, the Vive wand is terrific for that. I love the trackpad too. Sometimes the trackpad works better than an analog nub, in my opinion. Have I drank a beer in VR? Actually, I have. I've tried to take sips. It usually doesn't work too well, right? You got to kind of lift it first. But yeah, I have. And let me just see here. Just going to go through these. Go is good for media. That was a previous question. Yeah, and that's, you know, when I was using the Gear VR, that's mostly what I used it for. I actually enjoyed Netflix, multimedia style stuff on there, and there were some good games, but, you know, phone processor, there's going to be compromise. But yeah, multimedia wise, that was probably the majority of my Gear VR's use, was laying down, Netflix on the ceiling. Oh, do I miss BC? Yeah, I mean, there's parts of it I miss. For anybody who doesn't know, I used to live on the West Coast, city of Vancouver, in the suburbs, and BC's beautiful. BC is the most mountainous province in Canada. It's gorgeous, but it's got a very high cost of living. And we just made a decision to capitalize on that, because if you sell there, you still got to buy something that's as expensive, if not more. The decision to move east was so we could sell and then make better use of that return, right? i.e. be mortgage free. So I miss the wilderness. I miss some parts of the big city, but there's a lot in Halifax here that I love. Driving is awesome because you can get anywhere within 20-25 minutes max. Anyone who's been to Vancouver knows that ain't the case there. But yeah, back to VR. So touch is better than analog. I was wondering about that. In what sense? What do you mean, Seraphim? Can you clarify? And I'll get back to that. Jimmy, what do I think of Fallout 4 VR? I love Fallout 4 VR. It's in my top games. I'm going to do a video on my top 20 VR all-time across all platforms. And absolutely, Fallout 4 is on that list. My only real complaint, and let me know in the chat, guys, because I haven't really done the research the last few weeks. My understanding is mods, you know, still don't work. And it's not like Skyrim where it's unofficial, but most mods work, especially for the special edition. That's the only thing missing there for me. And a bit of a hit performance-wise. So I've got the 1080, i7 6700K, and I've got to make a lot of compromises on Fallout 4. Even with the updates, there's still areas it hits pretty hard with the 1080. But you know what? There's settings to me, and this came up the other day. Somebody made a comment on the Windlands game about not liking the non-texture look. And what he meant by that is Windlands, it's very pastel, it's shaded polygons for the most part, and very simple textures. Personally, it doesn't bother me. It depends on the game. If I want that realistic texture style experience, Fallout 4 certain Unreal Engine stuff, Skyrim for sure with mods. I'll go in that direction. But Windlands, what you get in return for not having those complex textures is a pretty fast-paced, awesome, awesome game. All right, I'm just going to scroll up. I just don't want to miss. Yeah, Vive Pro, ridiculous pricing. Agree, Jimmy. That's, you know, what I was saying earlier. That's probably the biggest issue for me is the cost. If I'm going to put that money out, I'd rather have it get something in return than just resolution. Like the Pimax, where I get the resolution, the field of view, etc. But as I said earlier on that too, what does it actually look like, right? All we're hearing, except for those of you who've actually tried it, is that, yeah, it looks great, but temper your expectations with regards to the Pimax. So that's what I'm doing. I'm being patient. I'd love Fallout VR on, is that PS4? Yep. Yeah, agreed. I'm coming from PlayStation VR. Now, Seraphim, when you say you're coming from PSVR, as in you sold, or just, you know, you still have it, but you've now got PC VR? And CJ, yeah, don't worry about it. This was pretty impromptu. I was going to do this earlier today. Didn't quite work out, but it's up and running now. So I'll get more comfortable with these. I spent the last 2 hours just testing things. Microphone wasn't loud enough. Template wasn't quite working. So as I'm watching here, yeah, that's awesome. So back to the questions. I wanted to answer just a little bit more on that Fallout 4 VR. So yeah, just RPGs in general, I think are awesome in VR. I don't think, other than the handful of titles like the Skyrims and the Fallouts, we haven't even scratched the surface on potential for virtual reality and RPG. That's one genre. There's examples of it, but we haven't seen anything yet. Have I tried using a Vive tracker at all? Consequential asks. No, I haven't. And you're talking about the three-pronged tracker. No, the official one. Haven't used that. I've got, you know, the lighthouses permanently stationed diagonally, but additional tracking, no, just the two. Touch, somebody says touch is a lot better than move. Let me just grab these here quick, guys. So one of the viewers was awesome enough, I'm not going to say his name just in case, but I lost one of my Move controllers in that move from the West Coast. And you guys know it's hard to get these individually. Usually it's secondhand, or you pay the full amount, which I think is $100-something Canadian here, to get two of these, but I only needed one. So he sent me the one and this older, which I keep meaning to test this. Does anybody know offhand this controller, if that works at all in VR on the PlayStation? Either way, he sent that along. So, yeah. You know, PlayStation VR, to me, I think it's awesome that it exists. Not just for the millions of units that are out there. That's huge. It's leverage. It's great for all of VR. But that doesn't mean it doesn't have its deficiencies, right? PlayStation VR, the biggest issue, tracking. And, you know, even the most hardcore of PlayStation VR fan is going to admit tracking isn't ideal. But what it makes up for is front-facing experiences, seated experiences, Resident Evil 7, which I really hope comes to PC at some point. Those are experiences you can't find anywhere else in VR, and they're awesome. They're special, and they're awesome. And that's PlayStation VR tracking aside, right? It works in the PlayStation 4 menus. Okay, yeah, that's what I wasn't sure about. I hadn't even actually seen one of these, so. But yeah, speaking of the Move controller, so with this aim controller, if anybody out there procrastinated as long as I did and you've been wondering if it's worth it, it's worth it. It's so easy to set up. I don't know what I was expecting setup-wise, but, and I think PlayStation VR Frank, he said it in one of his videos, it's literally lining up the ball with a circle on the screen and you're good to go. So, but it's got, and I mentioned that in the video, today's video as well, it's got heft. I was expecting super cheap, light PVC style piping, and it's much better than that. As it topples over. All right. All right, so let's go back here. So Lord Balders, VR show, any advice on motion sickness? I'd love to play stuff like Skyrim with smooth motion. Anytime I do, I find that after 15, you start to get a bit motion sick after 15 to 20 minutes. Actually, interesting that you ask that, because prior to that break that I took, the 6-month hiatus, there were no experiences that got me nauseous, you know, VR motion sickness of any kind. It was pretty much anything I put on, anything I tried was fine. After the break, I noticed it's happened now 2-3 times. And was it always Unreal Engine? 2 of the 3 were Unreal Engine related, and they ended up being, I think, too aggressive settings. So there was some reprojection going on and just some jerkiness. That got me a little motion sick. But in terms of advice for it, yeah, it depends. There's a couple of different things you can do. You don't obviously want to self-medicate every time you play VR, but try it with a Gravol and just see if it's an inner ear thing. That's a good way to rule that out, right? Try something like a Gravol. Otherwise, experiment, right? Try it different times of the day, different levels of rest. Do you have a lot of food in your stomach? You know, there's little things that you can kind of do. But yeah, and practice, 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 Seraphim says. Exactly. That's what I'm hearing. I haven't had that experience personally, so I can't really vouch for it. But I imagine just in the same way that my 6-month layoff kind of introduced some motion sickness or VR sickness, that the reverse is also true. You know, the more you expose yourself, the better off you'll be. All right, so let's go back up. Epics, that was the tracker. Alien Isolation, Sega should do. Yeah, Sega has so much awesome intellectual property that would just translate so well to VR. And I go off on that a lot when I say I just wish devs would retrofit existing stuff. And Sega has such a library of rail shooters, for example, House of the Dead, and we could go on and on, Time Cop. So many titles. That would be awesome in virtual reality. And you wouldn't think would be huge, you know, developmental challenges. It would just require a little bit of elbow grease, and they would have a whole library. Imagine just like a bundled release where they took, you know, their top 6 rail shooters, the House of the Deads and some other ones, and did that as a release, right? 10, 15, even $20 if it's a tight package of 6 games in there. I think that would be awesome. So yeah, I totally agree. And it's not just Sega, but they're definitely one of them. Can you explain Tech Dog? Hey, Tech Dog, repost that, Tech Dog, because it just scrolled off the screen. And this template that I created, I can't scroll on it. So I missed that. Just going to go down here. I saw some other ones. Doom VFR gets me motion sick. When I said there were 2 that was Unreal Engine, the third one that got me motion sick, yeah, was Doom VFR for me too. And that was when I was trying out the aim controller the other day. It was great, but yeah, I did get a little dizzy and a little nauseous with Doom VFR. But again, that never happened in the past. So it'll be interesting if that continues or goes away. My expectation is it's going to go away. And Lightbringer asks, Epics, are you getting Pimax 8K? Yes. I don't know when I'm going to get it. I'm not a backer. but I will definitely get a Pimax at some point. Yeah, there's no question on that. Golden Axe in VR. Yeah, I mean, we could rattle off so many Sega titles that are awesome, that would make for good VR experiences. And even side scrollers. See, there's kind of mixed feelings on that. Because I know some people would say, well, why bother retrofitting? You know, why not just develop new type of games? Why rehash the old? Well, I think it gives us added library selections for VR, but it also provides developers with some practice coding, right, for virtual reality, that down the road when the market is at a place where, you know, your big AAA publisher isn't going to be shy about releasing a VR game because they're going to be able to recoup the cost, they'll have that much more experience. That's my argument for VR retrofitting. Space Harrier, oh my God, that would be awesome. Would Space Harrier not be awesome? That really would be. Shenmue, oh yeah, exactly. House of the Dead, yeah, Time Crisis, there's another one. Spy Hunter would be awesome. What was it that I tried? The Wolfenstein 3D, but there was something else. It was before my hiatus. That arcade one where you play around in a virtual arcade, that was a blast too. And that's the thing. It's not just the games themselves. There's other ways to use VR in and around how they present games, right? I thought that was a really cool, novel way, was being able to walk around a 1980s, 90s style arcade, complete with the craptastic carpet. Very excited for Creed, says Seraphim. Yeah, me too. When I broke my ankle a few years ago, packed on some pounds that, you know, I haven't been good about getting off. That is one of the titles that I'm looking at just to kind of do some daily VR moving around. And Beats, holy crap, guys. I talked about that in tonight's show too. But Beats, I can't believe, you know, I let that one slip during my hiatus. So freaking good. Really, really good. Moon literally made Ray motion sick. Yeah. Really like a game like Total War, Warhammer. Yeah. There's Brass Tactics is that title. Kind of the strategy populous style title. Shows strategy games as well work really well in VR. But yeah, something on a Total War scale would be great. Like my favorite one, Total War Rome. Just that would be amazing, that experience. People are still listing Sega games, right? Panzer Dragoon. Heck yeah, that would be freaking awesome. Jawa. Let's see him here. Shenmue has tank controls and QuickTime events. I wonder how that would play. Yeah, that's the thing, right? You've got your natural fit games that you don't even have to second guess how they're going to work in VR because you know it's going to work. The other game I talked about in tonight's show was MechWarrior, the lumbering RPG style of MechWarrior Mercenaries. Probably my top 3 games that I'm waiting for that they haven't developed yet would be a MechWarrior RPG style game like Mercenary, my ultimate space game, and my ultimate RPG. We still haven't seen in VR, but they're on the horizon. And thanks, Tidy. Says he's got to fly. Keep it up. Absolutely. CJ, if Vorpex was to grow with VR, I think it would bring more excitement for VR for older games. Yeah, and that's another title that you mentioned that I keep meaning to go back to. I purchased Vorpex early on, and some people swear by it. Personally, I know there's titles. BioShock Infinite is one of those that people always like to throw out there that is easy, apparently, to configure and get working. I've tried BioShock Infinite. I don't know if my standards, like my expectations, were too high, but I couldn't see myself playing the entire game that way with Vorpex. But I'm not giving up on it. It's one of those things I've gone back to probably 2 or 3 times to try to get it to work and just haven't been able to get it to be satisfactory. It's more... Fallout is not really a shooter, though. It has guns. It's more RPG light. If you're talking about Fallout 4, yeah, I would agree with that. But to answer your question, CJ, I kind of went off on a tangent there with the with Vorpex. Yeah, there's definitely still room for titles like that. Alongside retrofitting, where they're actually going in, like Doom 3, for example. Programs like Vorpex, absolutely, I think there's still a market for those. Yakuza is 100 times better version of Shenmue. Yeah, there's always going to be, right? Everyone's going to have camps. I love the GTA series. My favorite, and it's the Canadian actor in there who plays on Walking Dead, the second in command, Trevor from GTA 5. Probably one of my favorite video game characters ever, all time, full stop. I just love that game. I would like to see that truly in VR. I know there's workarounds, but a GTA style game would be awesome. Boulder Dash VR, yeah, absolutely. Elder Scrolls game that's developed for VR, not ported over. Yeah, I agree, Stephen. And my hope is, speaking of that, whatever this new Elder Scrolls is, that from day one, because I know they're not officially talking about it, we've heard rumors, that if they can ensure that VR support is there from the get-go, that would be awesome. And then I see some back and forth here. Gopher is talking about Onward. Yeah, my problem is I'm such a damn, I do some social stuff. Jawa here, he got me into a social one, which was awesome. But multiplayer stuff in general, I don't tend to do a lot. But I have no doubt, based on, the experience with Wave VR, for example, that, yeah, it would be awesome. Although I did do Windlands 2. I did some co-op on that, and that was awesome as well. Brass tactics to work with Revive. Yeah, good question. If anyone knows, hopefully they'll answer you, Ray, on Brass Tactics. What was the other title? Wasn't it you, Ray? You were asking about something else on Revive. Oh, Windlands 2. Somebody asked, has anyone tried that? Just off chance. Really curious if that works. Wave Race VR, that would be another good title. And Cyberpunk, oh my god. Guys, schlock worthy on that one. That one ticks me off no end. I get it. I understand the market's not where they wanted it to be. But Cyberpunk would be such an awesome VR experience, in my opinion. That would be great. And the next Witcher. Yeah, I love the Witcher series. What's that other Skyrim Elder Scrolls style one? The hell's it called? The Gothic. That's the one. Wonder what happened to that series, if they ever just stopped, because that's another one. That would be good in VR as well. Should we wait for Pimax 8K? Yeah, I mean, look, I get the argument for Star VR. From a pure quality point of view, and again, remember, this is sight unseen for me. I haven't seen a Star VR up close, haven't seen a Pimax up close, but based on the specs, based on the markets that they're catering to, there's no question the Star VR is one hell of an awesome and more high-end device than the Pimax 8K. But to me, it also boils down to affordability. And if we can get that higher field of view where it's not going to annoy me like a dead pixel, if that works for the price plus the higher resolution, fantastic. But if money was no object, oh yeah, Star VR. I mean, what an awesome unit. but definitely going to get the 8K myself. And somebody answered, Gopher, you answered Ray back that it works on Vive Brass Tactics. Oh, fantastic. Witcher 3 works in VR with Vorpex. Kit Havoc. Do me a favor, Kit. If you could, direct message me on Twitter and let me know what settings, if it's not a hassle for you, like a big pain in the arse. I'd love to know what you've done to get Vorpex to a level where, yeah, you're playing a game fully with it. And Seraphim asks about Star VR. Yeah, Star VR is another one of those higher than 110 degree field of views. I had something else, speaking of field of view, that is bizarre to me. The Rift, the Vive, both of them, if you look for the black tunnel, right, you notice the lower field of view. Usually a game is good, you're immersed, you don't pay it any heed, but if somebody says or asks you to look for it, you're going to see it. What I noticed with Sony's PlayStation VR, even though the field of view is the same, it doesn't seem as noticeable, that tunnel effect, right? Of course, there's trade-ins there, right? Anthony, what he calls the Vaseline look on some games, which definitely happens with PlayStation titles because of, performance needs. But yeah, those higher field of views, that's what Star VR and Pimax 8K are all about. What controllers? It's going to be able to apparently use a hybrid, its own style controller, which I featured on a couple of shows, kind of knuckle style. But there's going to be some options there for sure. Yeah, sorry, just aggro with Vorpex, Gopher says. Yeah, that's been my experience, man. Much aggro with that. Like, I can't honestly say I feel that it's been worth the money that I paid for. I'm happy to support the devs because a lot of people are getting value out of Vorpex. But again, for me personally, I just haven't been able to get it to work. So let's go back here. Revive is basically dead. Oh, right, Jawa says. Yeah, because of the OpenXR spec when that's on the horizon. Very true. And Lightbringer. Oh, that's just Jawa replying. Witcher 3, as I'm scrolling down. Chris says, tried Shadow of the Tomb Raider with stereoscopic 3D in big screen beta. Highly recommend it. Immersion was amazing. Almost felt like a VR game. Yeah, that big screen mode, and I got to do more of that. I used to use that quite a bit. Kind of forgotten about it, but yeah, it's pretty awesome. And it looks like Jawa and Lightbringer are having a back and forth discussion. What did you just say? What makes you chuck? I got to read back here. Not possible. The math doesn't work out. How many games are released each year? Oh, okay. I thought you meant as in vomiting. Never used anything other than PlayStation VR, Seraphim says. Yeah. As someone who's used them all, they all have their benefits. They all have their strengths. It's like exclusivity, right? I mention that one a lot. I can't stand it, but I understand it. I understand that some titles would never have gotten made if it weren't for the money up front. But I'd like to hope we get to a point, and these devs are able to get to a point where they don't have to rely on that, right? Right now, it's still so fresh and raw, marketing-wise. It's cutthroat, right? If they can get an exclusive, an Oculus or an HTC, there's still money being thrown out to land those exclusives. PlayStation VR does it quite frequently, right? Resident Evil 7 that I was talking about. That would make such an awesome title for the PC. I played it pretty much front-facing, but there's parts of that game where I'd love to be able to, do a lot more rotation and room scale type stuff and not be chair-bound. On a non-gaming note, you think there could be a proper mainstream market soon for watching TV, like sports event in VR, for example, through... Yeah, let's talk about that one. That's an awesome one. And sorry, that was Trigger Happy who asks. He asks, non-gaming wise, where are we at with entertainment style events? Now, viewer to the channel, Chris Brower, he'd been hassling me for months to try out Wave VR, which was on beta. I finally did, and Jawa here, who's chatting, I went in with him to experience it. It absolutely blew me away. So it was Imogen Heap, Glitch Mob, and Jawa. I can't remember what the one that I did with you in there, but it was absolutely awe-inspiring. It was stunning. The potential, there I go again, for entertainment style events is out of this world. Imogen Heap, it was like you were in this intimate venue. And what I mean by that is you've probably been to concerts, right, where there's 10, 15, 20,000 people. If it's an outdoor festival, upwards of 50,000, 100,000. But you may have been smaller clubs, right? The ones that are 50 to 100 people or just a few thousand. That's what that felt like. Really intimate. And it's not even about necessarily liking the music. Even if you're not an Imogen Heap fan, check it out to get an idea of what is going to be possible. Because it felt like, again, like I was in a venue. Fast forward maybe 5, 10 years in the future, I think it's going to get to the point personally where it's going to be such a close second best option to actually attending live that, yeah, people are going to make that decision to just not go to the concert and experience it in VR because it's going to be that good. And it's already pretty damn good. Some things I think are going to translate better to augmented reality. It's still something, you know, watching sports, for example, hockey for me, right? I'm not a big football guy or any of that. It's European football, hockey. Those are my kind of team sports. You watch them, you tend to watch in groups with buddies. Picture that. Couches, you're kind of around, you got the coffee table, augmented reality. The coffee table becomes the football field or the ice hockey rink, whatever that is, right? With stats, when you need them, when you want them, different camera views. Everybody's looking at that coffee table through augmented reality, but they're all seeing something different. So yeah, sports-wise, fantastic. And VR, I think, for that concert experience. When they get it to the point, the higher resolution, and doing a little bit more mixing in of actual reality with high frame rates and everything else. And maybe that's where some of the ray tracing stuff comes in the future. But it's going to be amazing to experience concerts in the future. So if you haven't yet, guys, check Wave VR beta out. That'll answer your question. I think you'll be pretty excited. Yeah, Lord Balders says the same thing. The experience is great, for sure. Shane, UFC, boxing. Yeah, that's the other thing. You know, I made the mistake. Iron Maiden, one of my favorite bands. The last time I watched them, went with my buddy Exity. And we got, and you got to remember, I'm in my 40s now. We got floor tickets. And we started out, we were probably third row, fourth row, because there's no organized seating, right? For that kind of concert venue where we were at. Crowd of 18,000, whatever. But of course, being a metal band, mosh pit opens up. And yeah, it's hard enough to stand there in my 40s for 3 hours. I wasn't about to start moshing. End result, we ended up 40 rows back. VR could address that, right? There is no poor seating in VR. You can always have front row seats, which I think is awesome. I hate 300. Chris says I hate 360-degree video with a passion, but I think that will change with light fields, and that's it. That's what I'm referring to with that technology getting better. You know, whether it's different rendering, like you say, light field technology. Absolutely, that small area of movement, Chris says, makes a huge difference, and it does, right? It's the difference between maintaining and breaking immersion. And when I first tried, I can't remember what the concert was, that's what I was basing, basing the Wave VR beta experience on. I was basing it on having tried some other app in 2015 or 16, and it wasn't that great. Compared to Wave VR, they've come a long ways in a pretty short amount of time. So yeah, that's only going to get better. Jefferson says, hey, bud, damn, missed the start. Yeah, apologies again, guys. If you're coming late, I had intended to have this up hours earlier, but I was having problems with microphone and the template, so it's all working now. It'll be on time next time. I want to do this as kind of just a weekly thing. Hangout, chat VR. Maybe do some gaming in the future, too. Graphics are beautiful, but it's so arcade and not sim. I'm not sure what you were answering that to, Ray. Scrolling back here. Yeah, sometimes I like that arcade experience. You know, you want to jump into VR, and that's what Beat Saber, to me, is just so awesome for. You only have 10 minutes in VR. Beat Sabers has you covered. You hop in, you can do 2-3 songs. And damn, they are challenging and so much fun. Light fields doesn't work on the processor. Yeah, we're going to eventually get to the point. The lowest common denominator is always going upwards, right? Everyone should try the Welcome to Light Fields demo on Steam. Did I try that? I think I did. I think I remember being impressed. And then the question, yeah, what time am I hoping to run the live show usually? I'm trying to aim, the viewers on my channel predominantly are East Coast US viewers, followed by West Coast US viewers, followed by UK, followed by Canada. So I'm trying to find times that work, you know, sort of okay for everybody. So I'm thinking on Saturdays, like if it's 5, 6 o'clock my time, then it's not too late in Europe, and it's not too kind of early for the West Coast people. And if you're watching me, there are some people from Asia that watch as well. That's the one that gets a bit tricky, but dinnerish, Saturday or Sunday is kind of the goal. So in terms of the time. Okay, let's catch up here. Project Cars 2, guys. I see somebody talking about that. You guys know how I feel about cockpit experiences. I love them because to me, they represent what other experiences, you know, still haven't reached that level, like room scale. I love me room scale, but room scale hasn't really truly been done properly. I think I mentioned to Jawa the best I felt about room scale was probably in Wave VR, in terms of utilizing space in my room, in terms of feeling like I was getting something that I wouldn't get with a seated experience, if that makes sense. So yeah, Project Cars 2, holy crap. You know, when you're mimicking, and I don't need to kind of go on to that tangent again, but when you're doing in-game what you're doing in real life and they're the same, it helps with the immersion. And that is the strength of Cockpit VR games right now. Whether it's mechs, ships, race cars, whatever it is that you're piloting or driving or flying, it just works so well. Any updates on wireless tech? Yeah. My thinking is, and if there's any of you out there that have actually tried either the official one or, you know, the TP Cast, let me know your thoughts, because I've spoken to a few people and their feeling with the wireless is they'd still rather be wireless, but that there are, you know, some kind of niggling issues in and around the wireless. It's not perfect yet, but it's really damn good. For me, it was just a cost decision. That's why I went with the ceiling mount, just as a stand-in, which I'm so thankful I did. And kicking myself I didn't do it earlier, because it changes it. And somebody mentioned, yeah, you don't need to do the PlayStation on there. Even the PlayStation, it helps having the ceiling mount, because PlayStation comes with a lot of cables, a lot of heavy cables, and it's just nice to have that suspended and not weighing down on your head. But yeah, so I will eventually be wireless. There's no question. It's just when for me. I fly and drive most of the time, Gopher says. Yep. VR. Yeah, that other one that looks fun. It's one of those games, is the European Euro Truck Simulator. Is that what it's called? On the surface, it sounds like the most boring experience. Why would you want to spend 5 real-life hours pretending to be a truck driver? But apparently, it's a hell of a lot of fun roaming around in the truck simulator. Yeah, price was horrible for Vive Wireless. I agree. And for the same reason as you, I steals the ceiling mount. Yep. Okay, so quickly go up to the top here. Seraphim, arthritis, kidney. Yeah, VR so much. Me too. Am I still enjoying Elite? T-Dub asks. I've played Elite only a handful of times. It's not for lack of, desire. I want to play the game, but I'm excited about adding to the experience. And for those of you who know, I'm doing a VR, or don't know, I'm doing a VR arcade in the next room over. One of the things that I'm going to be building is a cockpit for racing, Elite Dangerous. I've just been kind of holding off on that. And then the other thing was Velcro for my HOTAS, which is right here. Wouldn't that be funny if I smashed my head and never came back up? Cytec X52. So you can see on the bottoms here, guys, I've got Velcro. I keep forgetting to purchase Velcro to put on this desk, because this is not the desk I had back west. Having the Cytex with Velcro on the desk just adds so much, because you're not slip sliding them around. You can position them exactly the same as your in-game avatar. So a long-winded way of answering your Elite Dangerous question. Yes, I want to play it. Yes, I'm still going to play it. Once I get either the Velcro and or that cockpit, I'll be back doing Elite Dangerous. It's a grindy game, but it's awesome. Because to me, flying around in a spaceship in VR was something I dreamed about decades ago. It'll take a long time for me to get sick of that experience. Truck Sim needs to pay me to play that game. Yeah, I hear you, Ray. That's kind of my thing. I get how it can be fun. I can imagine that. But, yeah, you'd probably want to be driving and making real money for 7 hours instead of Euro Simulator during it. Drove for 17 years, and I will tell you that American Truck Simulator in VR is the closest thing to it. Okay, that's Stu saying that. Really, eh? The American one. I don't think I've seen that. I was wondering if there were other headsets to look for besides this generation's headsets. Well, the lineup that I have, kind of in terms of like my wants, let's assume money was no object. If money was no object, I would have the Vive Pro. I would have it, because I want that higher resolution for games like Elite Dangerous. I'm not sure. I imagine it works on that one and other titles. I'd get a Pimax. Obviously there's devices that I would love to have, but with budgeting constraints, I mentioned it earlier, I'll pass on the HTC Vive Pro, keep this one, my regular Vive, until that next generation, but the Pimax 8K firmly in my sights. So in terms of like my next purchases, that's probably the next biggest one. After that, probably a graphical card to pair with it. You guys know which one that is, right? Probably the 2080 Ti. Yeah, the T-Flight 1600. I have that one too. I've got a few of them. The Cytec is definitely better than my Thrustmaster, for example, but I don't think it's $100 better, right? The Thrustmaster was about 80, 90 bucks, and it's close enough that, I mean, I'm happy I got the Cytec now, but in hindsight, I probably would have been happy with the Thrustmaster. But once that cockpit's built, all bets are off, and that's where it'll come in handy. 60 hertz on wireless, can't even penetrate the skin, so I think we'll be fine. Yeah, I think we'll be fine on that too, Chris. It's just that the requirement for the 60 hertz is way more line of sight than, you know, some of the other wireless options. So depending on the experience or game, that could be problematic. But when it works and where it works, apparently it's really well. Mary, that's another one. Let's talk about that one for a sec. Time's 8:43 here. So we'll go a bit more here. I want to talk, this is some good questions here. So somebody said ring planets. I'll get back to that one, Gopher. A huge astronomy nerd too. Elite Dangerous. Yeah, Ray got into it. Most immersive game in VR. That's why it was #1 on my list forever. Because that cockpit VR experience. You are in a spaceship flying around. And I just missed, I'm going to try to catch this on my other one here, guys. There was a good question there that just scrolled off the screen. Don't worry about it. I know what he was asking. So Mario Kart VR. If you haven't tried Dolphin VR, guys, that's an amazing emulator. GameCube, Wii titles. It was pretty amazing back, you know, before my hiatus. Apparently it's gotten a lot better now. I remember one of the issues with Metroid Prime, I can't remember which one exactly, front facing, it worked really, really well. It's when you turn around, it couldn't render any of that properly. So you had polygons flying all over the place. Apparently that's been fixed. But yeah, if you've got VR, you like Dolphin, definitely give that one, give Dolphin VR a shot. Cheers, Random. Much appreciated, man. Thank you. All right. So what else did I miss here? Oh, Stu says he's got the Thrustmaster Warthog. Yeah, that's a nice piece of kit for sure. Gopher says he's got the foot pedals. Live stream that you're not sleeping through, Greg. That's awesome. Vive Knuckles, Lord Balder said, yep, I want the Knuckles too. Yeah, I've also got a racing wheel. Just one sec, guys. I'm just going to grab it super quick. Little dusty, but this is my old, what the hell was it? It's the Wingman Formula Force GP, which has no Windows 7 or 10 drivers. I think XP was the last they made. But something interesting happened about a year ago. One of the Windows 10 updates recognized it. It's not an official driver. It's just one of the OEM generic OS drivers. And it actually works now. So, because I don't know if you guys, if anyone is looking at wheel and pedal combos, they're not cheap. They're probably, of all of them, they're kind of up in that, you know, expensive level like the Warthog. So it was nice to have that work because it's still decent. There's obviously better ones out there, but it still works. Wanting to upgrade. Yeah, Seraphim says Elite Dangerous, the main reason you want to upgrade from PS VR. Isn't that experience there, or is it there without VR? Because I know Elite Dangerous is out for PlayStation VR. Or for PlayStation 4, rather. But I've never even thought about that. But yeah, definitely on a PC, right? With GPUs and on graphic cards that you can put into your system. You're not using something that's 6-year-old technology, so for sure you're going to get a better experience. Linus got his Vive Pro for free, and he still chose to stay with the original Vive. His review says all you need to know about the... Yeah. resolution, the screen door effect doesn't bother me that much. I've got to tell myself, look for it, I see it, but I can keep playing. Dead pixels, hell no. If I spot one, I'm out. It just drives me to absolute distraction. So yeah, I can see that for Linus with resolution. But me, yeah, I wouldn't mind the higher resolution. But if I had to rank resolution and field of view to me is the higher priority. So here we go, excited. Vive Pro, yeah. And that's the thing, Greg. So Greg K says, I have a Vive Pro. It makes Elite Dangerous so much better. It's those style of games, right? The cockpit experience is already so good, but there's still negatives. And one of those is legibility of text. So initially the Vive had some issues with its, more pure kind of Fresnel design where everything spot center was sharp, crisp. Well, the initial release, it wasn't even sharp, dead center, but anything on the periphery is blurry. The Rift does a better job of that. But I can imagine the Vive Pro, and that's the temptation for me with the higher resolution, is being able to have that whole cockpit, no matter where you look, even if you're looking straight on and you're kind of scanning with your side vision, to have it all crisp and clear. That's absolutely the promise of higher resolution. But just the Vive and just the Rift, I agree, Stu, is still good enough. So randomish, what are we talking about here? You're asking about the Knuckles. Not sure. Haven't heard any kind of specific release date for those. So if anybody knows, let me know. Set up, pick, I don't think. Doing the live stream. Sweet. Yeah, Colonel, you've been around. Happa Blap, a long time on the channel. Cheers, bud. Appreciate your guys' viewing and your viewing. So yeah, I hope to do these more frequently too. Would like to know too, Valve without VR, wheels and pedals can get super pricey. That's what I was saying exactly. I've got a PS4 Pro that I use for my VR, and then I've got a regular PlayStation that's kind of the living room, bedroom gaming kit. Can anyone clue me in the difference to the Pro with the HOTAS X52? I knew what the difference was. I think it's a little bit more metal. Yeah, maybe a little bit more metal, but I can't say exactly. I'll have to look that up. Got into VR, so okay, here we go. Team Fortress, yeah, that would be good too. So Lee Tobin, I got into VR through sim racing. I've added HOTAS add-on. All I seemed to use my cockpit for was Elite. But okay, have you tried, there's a question for you, Lee, DCS Simulator, which is a military one. That one, I highly recommend that as well. World, they've got out now. Assetto Corsa, probably my favorite in VR, absolutely. That one's fantastic. Project Cars 2. RTA, he had to leave. I think it was him who wasn't a huge fan of Dirt Rally, but I love rally-style racing. So even a poor rally racing simulator like Dirt Rally, to me, is still a lot of fun. Odyssey Plus, no info. Lightbringer, other than what I mentioned before. That's another device I've heard mixed things about. The Samsung Odyssey, the first one, not this follow-up device. People saying tracking issues if you're going with the proprietary kit. But if it could do Elite, that's another tempting one because you're not paying as much. So that would be one I would consider. Oh, here's RTA. I try to buy Pro at local VR arcade, just opened up here, prefer the lenses on the Samsung Odyssey over the Vive Pro. I still seen a lot of God rays. Yeah, I've heard that as well, yeah. But what would you say for cockpit style experiences for simulators? Would the Odyssey Samsung be a good way to go? Because cost-wise, like I said, that one's a lot more agreeable. Jason asks, do you have a video listing your favorite VR games? Funny that you ask that, because there will be a video coming up in the next couple of days, which is going to be my top 20 VR titles across all platforms. So what I'll do in that is I rank them according to my ranking, and then what platform, if it's available on multiple platforms, what my platform of choice is for that VR experience. Some there is no choice, like Resident Evil 7 for the 5th time tonight. It's only PlayStation VR. But yeah, expect that video within the next few days. And if anyone doesn't know, I did release a couple of hours ago this week's VR show. That is up now too. Hey Epics, you've got the Road to VR site open. Oh yeah, yeah. Was there any topics? Yeah, I was originally going to go through videos and stuff. This is only my second live stream, guys, so I am super noobish on this. But the idea with my template and Road to VR was to look at some stuff with you guys. We might still get to that, but for sure next week I'll be more prepared with stuff for discussion. Yeah. I'll kind of make this one more just a Q&A. Unless anyone has specific topics or wants me to pull something up specifically, I'd be happy to do it. And Colonel says, doing a bang-up job, Epics. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. It's so awesome to be back, guys. I've said that so many times now. You guys are probably sick of it. But I honestly, the break was good. I think it not only kind of revitalized me and energized me, but the time away from VR just made me appreciate it all the much more. And no worries, burn up wise, not going to happen, I don't think, again, because remember, I was doing it daily. I was grasping at straws. I was getting obsessed with stats. This time it's back to just for fun. I still want to do a decent job marketing. So if you see the like, hit the like. I hate doing that, smash, crush the like button. But it helps. It helps a lot. But this time around, like I said, fun, enjoyment, not daily crazy. Cap Aim says, I heard of a guy on YouTube transfer the Google lenses over to the Vive so you can do it for Samsung. Yeah, and I've seen other people take, I don't know if it's this one, guys. This is the second Gear VR, right? There was the white one, yeah. Then this black one, first gen black. Apparently, same thing. You can do lens swap with this. Is it into the Vive or Rift? Something like that. There's a mod hack for that as well. I looked into it, but I never flirted with actually doing it. Oh, RTA, you said you loved her. Yeah, you know what? It wasn't you. It's who's the other fella that watches the channel? That's a big sim guy like you. British guy, swears a lot in his videos. Cool guy though. Can't remember his name, but yeah, he doesn't like Dirt Rally. B-Boy, there it is. Okay. Dirt Rally, fantastic on plays. Yeah, don't forget, and the Vive Pro have the same panels. Yeah, RTA, I think you're answering somebody else, but it's the same panels. For me, it's more just cost and tracking, but that's why, to me, between the two, the Samsung Odyssey definitely more appealing, especially if all I really want it for now is those higher resolutions for cockpit style. Tracking's not an issue. It seems to be the smarter purchase. Modded Skyrim on CV1. Let's see here. Controller tracking is the Odyssey's downfall. Exactly. And that, again, my point, making it about just cockpit experiences, that's definitely a temptation. Thank you, Ray. Appreciate it. Yeah, human. Don't always feel it, but definitely. Stu says, big thing with the PlayStation VR, the SDE is a lot lower. So he's talking about the screen door effect. And yeah, but a lot of that too is workarounds. Screen door effect is lower because a lot of the games, they don't have that kind of visual clarity, for example, that you're going to see on some Rift and Vive titles because of performance. So, what I mentioned before, Anthony kind of termed that Vaseline look, where everything looks like it's got a layer of petroleum jelly over top of it. I don't notice that personally a lot. I know what he's talking about, but I love the PlayStation VR, and I'm okay with its shortcomings. I'd rather have it on the market with those shortcomings than pull an Xbox and not be on the market at all. I think, and I still maintain this, Microsoft, huge arse mistake not jumping into VR. But we've seen this show before, guys, right? Windows Gaming, DirectX, I could go on and on. They should have had Halo 2, simultaneous release on the PC, but they were convinced that, they were killing their own markets, that it was competition. It never was. All right. Alex says, first time catching you live. Yeah, like I said, this is my second live stream ever. I did one a few weeks before the channel came back out of hiatus, so this is the second one. So, hey, K-Locker, how's it going? He's been awesome for suggestions and tips on improving the ceiling mount, which will be in a future video. And let's go through here. Yeah, up close, everything is good, absolutely. The Vive is much clearer. Yeah, so Ethan Hawke instead of Ethan Hawke, the lens thing, and that's the thing with spec-wise, the Rift, the Vive, the PlayStation VR, almost identical. There's differences in lens design, levels of comfort, but resolution, they're pretty much on par, especially the Vive and the Rift. There's little differences, but it's give and take, its weaknesses, its strengths, and they vary. There's things that I think the Vive does a lot better. There's things that I think the Rift does a lot better. Like earlier, if anyone missed it, whoops. Let's move that. Hopefully I didn't kill anything there. The touch controller, case in point, right? Awesome controller. But still love the Vive. So back to this here. Stop focusing on the end of your nose. Keep it up, Epics. The other. Yeah, I appreciate that, Cap. But yeah, like I'm a huge fan of Facepalm. I don't know how he gets the energy. I couldn't be that high octane every single episode. I'm a little bit more about double meanings and, deadpan humor, but he's amazing. Like that guy, he creates some really good VR news content for sure. And it's such an awesome community, guys. Some of the guys get grief, and I think unjustly. Guys like Nady, for example, just he's number one for a reason in terms of, subscribers. There's an audience, I get that. But what he does behind the scenes for a lot of us VR content creators, nobody else sees that, but we see it. Whether it's creating a Twitter channel where we all hang out and chat, how many other YouTube communities do that, right? They're usually cutthroat, competitive, at each other's throats, not in VR. I chat with most of those guys daily, and it's awesome. Everyone's about helping each other. There's not a lot of asshattery going on. Now, let's see here. How long before we just plug the CPU to the cerebral cortex for VR? We joke, we laugh, but we all know it's coming. It's just when, right? I mentioned the other week that line. You guys are probably sick of the line, but it's truth. There's a line, and it's going upwards, and every single piece of technology that benefits VR is eventually going to get adopted by the mainstream technology. And somewhere along that line, even the most cynical person, I'd like to think, is going to have a point where they entertain the purchase of VR. Unless they're so vehemently against it and, loathe it. There's a place on that line for everybody. And most of us, we were always going to buy it anyways, right? But the rest of them, they'll hop on board. We just got to keep it up, keep throwing the content out, support the devs, the programmers, you know, the people who don't get kind of any of the glory, but do all the hard work behind the scenes, right? Tell friends and family and let them try it. Especially kids, you know. They're tomorrow's generation that's going to be buying VR stuff. Get them impressed. Cousins, you've got, you know, siblings. Let them all try it. Discord. Hope Ace Combat 7 is good. Yeah, oh, it looks amazing. If anyone hasn't seen that, that would be a good one to bring up here. See if I can get away. Sorry if I just hit the mic, guys. And I'm going to just kill the audio. So check this out, guys. This is Ace Combat, which who was that was talking about it? Seraphim. Let's skip ahead a little bit. Look at the details. I mean, check that out, guys. DCS World is good, but it ain't that level of good. So we're not getting a full experience. It's basically the equivalent of a police ride-along, right? It's a big tease. But holy crap, it's a gorgeous looking tease. And it's an example of what we can expect in the future. It's going to be commonplace to see those types of graphics, you know, in our VR simulation titles. But yeah. Look at that, right? All right, back here. Biggest thing ever. Yeah, agreed, Lightbringer. And I'm not, oh, back here. Sorry, Greg. Speaking to a daughter, she's played Vive and her neighbor has a Rift. She loves the Vive, but she thinks the Rift controllers are better, and most people do. I still maintain, like I said, there's strengths for the Vive wand. There are certain applications where trackpad just works better, but there's a lot of applications where an analog nub works better, right? Yeah, just like I don't buy the, you know, the whole, remember that myth? That one drove me nuts. The whole AR at the expense of VR. Hell no, totally separate. They're each going to evolve on their own. The death of one doesn't mean the death of the other. Likewise, the success of one doesn't necessarily mean the success of the other. Remember that line with digital cameras? There were people that swore they would never go digital. Oh yeah, and another example of that. So Jim talks about the line with digital cameras. People saying they would never go digital, you know, and he says it's just a matter of time. Another example of that is ebooks. I was one of them. I want the tactile feel of a book. I don't want ebooks, right? Then you go on vacations and you realize bringing, you know, 10, 15 books with you on a plane isn't, you know, the easiest thing to pull off compared to having a Kindle or an iPad with 30, 40 ebooks that you can flip through. Once I kind of got used to it, now I'd say it's almost the other way around. I can still appreciate a physical book, but my first purchase now is going to be ebook. Comics even, same thing. Now the few comic titles that I buy go right into the collector's bin, and what I read is the e-comic version of it. And yeah, person says PSVR exclusive. I know. I ranted about that a little earlier. I don't think anyone wants to hear a repeat, but I get it, but I don't like it. And eventually, you know, the perfect example of that is Windlands 2. I think, you know, the argument is they did the exclusive to be able to release the game. But that is a title, in my opinion, that needed to be released simultaneously on the PlayStation. Especially with Spider-Man. They could have fed in to a lot of that Spider-Man hype, the Pancake Spider-Man, you know, with the VR swinging on Windlands 2, because it is awesome. It is such a fun mechanic. Who is it that has the VR channel with the most subscribers? I would say that's Nady. He's actually in the Guinness Book of World Records, the latest edition, for subs north of 400K. I think he's closing in on 500K. And you know what, Lightbringer, some don't. Like I said, what the guy does behind the scenes, holy crap, Shane, dude. Seriously, guys, so much appreciated. But yeah, honestly, Shane, we can chat outside of this. But thanks, bud. Everything goes back into the channel. I appreciate that. Okay, so here, kids these days don't know about 35mm. Yeah, exactly. Look at Polaroids, right? And Quality says, I never knew you came back. Sorry, it scrolled up there a little bit, guys, so I missed a couple. If the comment that I'm seeing is Quality Sleeves, I never knew you came back. So if you ask me a question, I didn't get to it above that, please repost. Time to Binge, Epics, Mr. TV, Swivivor. Yeah, again, all great guys and all guys that, you know, talk to each other. We all chat with each other pretty much daily via the Twitter group that Nady started. Stu, it took me 7 years. When I first read that, I thought you meant, Stu, it took you 7 years of marriage to finally talk to your wife. So that's good. What you actually said was to talk her into a Kindle, and now she likes the Kindle better. And that's what I'm finding, you know, with VR, with the cynics, right? Have them actually try it. They may not want to run out and buy one, but they get it. And the ones that, you know, put on the persona that they don't get it, they get it. They just don't want to admit they get it. And again, Shane, you got to let me know when your gun is ready, because I'll put that right towards that. Personal feeling aside is bringing a lot of positivity to the VR scene. Colonel Hapablap says, absolutely. And you know what? You might not like the style of delivery. There's people who don't like my style of delivery, right? And, you know, that's taste, that's opinion, that's being subjective, objective. It's everybody's right. Yeah, and Fluke just confirmed Nady World Record Gaming Edition for most popular VR YouTuber in the new VR section. Yep. And Shane, again, man, you got to tell me where you live. If it's within reach, some brews and a lunch on me, man. That is awesome. That is going right back, like I said, into the channel, if not your stuff. Yeah, but Stu, I don't do the live streams for that. I appreciate it, but just having you guys watch, honestly, like the videos, that helps, right? I mentioned it in the video today, but go to Social Blade. Actually, I'll just show you guys if it's all right with you guys. Just going to show you real quick here. I want you to see the difference, okay? Because I know people get annoyed. Why do people constantly ask for the, you know, the like button? So if you guys can see that, I'll increase it. 63 subs, 3,282 views. That was last week's VR show. And that was a direct result of the likes, the engagement. It started showing up on people's recommended. And, well, there's the proof right there. You can see the average is usually high, kind of single digits, right? And that day was 63. Again, I'm doing it for fun, but I still want the channel to grow, obviously. And perfect example of what like and comments do, you know, if you're ever curious. All right, back to questions here, if I missed any. Yeah, Jawa asks, is there even a good comic book reader for PC? Oh, good question. You're not asking me, period. Obviously, there's great comic book readers for Pancake. But yeah, good question. Anybody know, is there any comic book readers for PC VR? That's a really good question. Because that would be kind of cool. Just kind of like big screen, but imagine having those big, vibrant comic book panels in front of you. especially the ones where they do a little bit of animation. That would be awesome. And thanks, Seraphim. Have a good one, man. Everyone here is so nice. Yeah. I don't want to say the T word, but it looks like we dodged some T's in this stream tonight. Of course, there's still a few minutes, right? 9:12. Santa Cruz will be exciting because you can take the headset. Yeah. I was actually thinking about that. One of my thoughts was there's some water area here in Halifax in the downtown where you don't need any licensing to busk, right? So I was thinking of actually that same thought, is imagine going there with a couple of Santa Cruzes, set up a little bit of a canopy, and just get people to try VR, right? All the tourists are out, right now. So if I do get my hands on something like Santa Cruz, I was thinking of that. And I'm not talking about charging. If they want to tip, fine, tip. But I'm talking just expose people to VR. That's the irritant for me with some of these big companies. They think because they've exhausted traditional forms of marketing, and really they haven't, there's still a lot more to exhaust. There's so many other ways to spread VR, and setting up a little stand with a couple of Santa Cruzes to get people walking, milling about to try, I think would be awesome. Oh yeah, Shane says it's ready, but no need. Just get me that address. Well, and for anybody who doesn't know, Shane is working on, and he's got some pretty much refined units, but amazing guns for virtual reality. Go check it out. In fact, Shane, give me your website. I'll throw it up on when this gets posted in the description. I'm sure people are going to wonder. And next up, Santa Cruz. Yep, we saw that. Everyone, I know yeah, Stu, the like button. It's that powerful. Again, I don't want to harp on it because I've done enough of that, but it makes a huge, huge difference. It's the difference between it getting recommended and not recommended. When a video doesn't get recommended, it can be the greatest video in the world, you know, and there's some awesome content creators out there, but they don't have the benefit of an audience like I do, you know, to get that content out. I do remember Carmack mentioning how neat a VR comic reader would be. Yeah. And Sebastian asks, how good can Santa Cruz graphics be? They're going to be better than the Rift. Not the Rift, sorry. The Gear VR. They're going to be better than the Oculus Go in terms of the complexity of textures and stuff, because the processor is going to be a bit more high-end. I think it's a Snapdragon 845, if I'm not mistaken. That's going to power the Santa Cruz. So it's going to, and the big one is the 6 degree of freedom and dual controllers. With all of these other units, you know, like the Gear VR here, we get the crappy little remote controller. That's it. Or, you know, you get the DualShock equivalent with a gamepad that's compatible. But Santa Cruz is going to have dual controllers, 6 degrees of freedom. It's bridging that gap to tethered more so than any other mobile solution that's come before it. That's the excitement. I wouldn't want to play VR in public, iSteel says. Yeah. And you know what? There's probably a lot of people that feel your way. But there's also going to be a segment of the population that hasn't tried it, will try it, and then will probably go out and purchase it, right? Or maybe they don't see themselves buying a unit, but they want to support VR via arcades, etc., even just telling people. And that's the hope. But I agree with you. Yeah, there's definitely people who wouldn't. And Colonel says, yeah, I'm definitely interested in Shane's work. Absolutely. I'll make sure that that link is up there for you guys to check it out. He's also got videos available that show them in action. Eric for president, solid glass here. Glass or class? And Jawa says, got an email that the Counter-Strike has its open beta. Now it's the demo on their Steam page. That's awesome. Am I excited for Zero Caliber game? Never tried the beta. I don't know if that was a question, Lance, for somebody else or for me. I haven't tried it, not aware of it. And 845, Onakazi says, is what people were saying. Yeah, it's not official yet whether it's going to be the Snapdragon 845, but that's kind of the best guess, right? Okay, next up, actually managed to get my dad outside his house playing my Oculus. Oh, cool. So Fluke Rogi says he's answering iSteals. I actually managed to get my dad sat outside his house playing my Oculus Go, managed to get the odd strange look. Yeah. And that's the thing. Some people are just so self-conscious, you know, the same people that don't want to speak in public, you know, and you get asked in the classroom, Johnny, stand up and tell us about the book report. Same thing with VR. They're not going to, quote unquote, want to look goofy in front of their buddies. But those are stats, right? We can work with that because there's still a percentage of people who are curious enough that don't give an arse and will want to try it. Can't be as good as PC. No, it's not, Sebastian. It isn't. But again, it's bridging the divide slowly. Because you got to remember, eventually, it's all just a matter of time with technology. We're going to get to a point 5 years from now where the mobile technology then is better than the tethered technology now. It's just a matter of time. And that's just going to increase what is possible with the mobile. So, you know, and that's what I tell people. Don't get too hung up on the now because the now is changing. It's ever changing, right? Likewise, don't always wait for a certain price because you're always going to be waiting. There's always a better price. There's always another sale. If you've got the funds and you truly want to experience it, get it, right? Save up again for something else in the future. Get the Oculus version. I'll pick it up. Mostly I want Santa Cruz to keep my VR exercise. Yeah, Quality Sleeves mentions the Santa Cruz to keep up VR exercise. Always feel awful from no Beat Saber when I go on trips. Yeah, Quality. I mentioned this earlier. I don't know if you were on the stream when it started, but I'm waiting for Creed, and I'm going to do that too daily just to kind of get some of the poundage off and, you know, do some Beat Sabers, do some Creed, and some other titles. Is the Santa Cruz the one that you can use 2 graphic cards with? I don't believe so, but correct me if I'm wrong, guys. Ray asks, is the Santa Cruz the one that you can use with 2 graphic cards? Might end up with a funny YouTube video of a public VR demo, I guess. Yeah, iSteals. Yeah, and you're probably going to get blooper stuff, right? People laughing, people scared. You know, imagine doing a horror stuff in public. But I also think you're going to get a lot of oohs and ahs, people that are impressed. And look, if you spent 8 hours outside and, you know, of 200 people trying it, 20 or 30 decide to go out and buy a VR unit, well, you've done some good, in my opinion. Jawa says he doesn't like the idea of the first VR experience for people being a standalone. Yeah, but I think, you know, that ship has already sailed. I think the real danger isn't necessarily that. It's the poor quality mobile ones, those $20 knockoffs that are essentially Google Cardboards in a plastic husk, right? They are the danger, I think. I think there's a responsibility if you're having people try that as part of the marketing. You know, if I was doing that, standing out there with Santa Cruz's, having people try it, that would be part of the spiel. I would say something like, yeah, okay, what you're seeing now, you know, with the PC units or the PlayStation units, they only look better. It's that much more in your face, etc., etc. That just has to become kind of part of the lingo, part of the marketing of it. It's not let them try it, don't say anything, and away they go. That's kind of more what I was thinking. Hey, G, you're live. I am, Rob. Cheers, bud. Is Creed out? No, Shane asks. Creed comes out on the 18th or the 25th. Think it's the 18th. It's one of those two for sure. And the RTX is supposed to support it, coming soon indeed. Amazon has the Samsung for $399 right now. I know. Honestly, Stu, so freaking tempted. Quality says, that makes sense. I use Beat Saber, Thrill of the Fight. Yeah, Thrill of the Fight, I've tried that one, but I really like what Creed is trying to pull off with their kind of combat boxing mechanic. I might not like it once I try it, but what they've kind of sold on the trailers looks really good. Yeah, Star VR with the cards. Person says he's thinking of Star VR with the cards. Yeah, I think it was Ray who asked. It's Star VR that allows you to use multiples, correct. What's the first experience to show people who have never tried VR? The Plank? Lightbringer asks. That was one I was never impressed with. I'm somebody who is scared of heights, and I got that feeling absolutely a little bit, but I think there's better ones out now. Back then, it was a good one, the Plank, for sure. That's actually a good question. What would you show people? I guess it would depend on their likes. I think a really good, quick example that works for most people is Google Earth. Because the experience it's a pretty powerful experience with the Street View working now. Yes, it's only 360, but it's a good lead in, right? Start with Google Earth VR. That kind of lassos most people in who aren't necessarily gaming. And then go with something specific. If they are into gaming, let them try something. Find out a bit about their interest. If it's astronomy, maybe it's something space-based. If it's horror, they're big horror fans. We got plenty of zombie horror games in VR for them to try, etc. That's kind of what I would do. So yeah, Jawa says, I would suggest Google Earth VR. Well, you heard me just say it. I agree with you completely. And that was sight unseen, but thinking the same thing exactly. When I first got the Vive, that Star Wars mini experience was pretty cool. I think you're, Shane, the Tatooine one, right? Super short, but super powerful, amazing experience. Having the Millennium Falcon roaring in. Yeah, Millennium Falcon nerd right here. That was my favorite spaceship. And quality sleeves. I think the Plank definitely demonstrates the technology, but not really good for showing it exactly. That's you stated it a lot better than I did. That's what I was trying to say, but couldn't find the words for exactly. There's better examples now that show the technology. And like Jawa and I were saying, I think you start with a Google Earth and then you gravitate whatever that person's interest is. Rob says, my go-to app to show people is Oculus T-Rex 1. That's a good one too, for sure. Archery in the lab, that's another good one. Yeah, that lab is, you can't go wrong with the lab for sure. Epic, sorry if I missed this question. This is CJ, but have you decided a weekly show like this? If so, I will put you on my VR channel so I won't miss a show. Yeah, that's the thought, CJ, is I'm going to do the VR show recorded, one of those per week, one weekly VR live stream hangout like this, and then some gaming videos, tutorials, whatever kind of on the wayside. While it might be funny to show someone a scary experience, it's a good way to make them take the... Yeah, exactly. I can't disagree with that, Fluke. And that's why I say it has to be graduated, right? If you start that same person off with the Google Earth VR, they kind of see the potential there. If they're super horror fiends and they're begging for the scare, sure, let them try it. If they're horror fiends, but there's other stuff that they like more, go for the other stuff, because you're right. They may take it off and never put it back on. I go with First Contact. First Contact is another good one. Mom has always loved Star Trek. Stu, perfect example. Same thing. I remember being a kid and seeing the original Star Trek series. Always loved sci-fi, Doctor Who, etc. And I remember delivering the papers and just daydreaming about Doctor Who. having the TARDIS materialize, which is his spaceship if you don't know, hopping on board and taking off for any time, anywhere. That's another title which a Doctor Who nerd like me would love to see in VR, is simulate. And this is, I'm going to go off on a tangent here for a sec, but if you haven't seen the sci-fi show, the whole idea is he's an alien from a planet that's mastered time travel. You probably know the police box, right? It was stuck that way. It's supposed to adapt itself, the spaceship, to its surroundings. The inside is bigger than the outside. It's infinitely large on the inside, and it's powered by, the energy from black holes. Anyways, the VR potential for that to me is huge, but there's no market yet for it, especially for Doctor Who fans, because that's even smaller percentage. But one day my hope is room scale TARDIS that you can go in and visit different time periods. That would be awesome. That's right up there for one of my ultimate sci-fi VRs. But back to Star Trek, exactly. The bridge crew, and that's still a little cartoony, right? That's even going to get better. Eventually, it will probably be like watching a Star Trek HD show, seeing the bridge on one of those like Discovery. It's going to be that realistic. The older a person is, the more they are wowed by VR, says Captain Carrot. I showed 4 people 50 plus the Apollo experience. They've all purchased a VR setup. Youngsters are not that overawed by VR. And I can't disagree with that. I agree with you completely. And it is a bit of a generational thing, right? I mean, look at the differences. When I was a teenager, I could leave home and there was no way to contact me because there were no cell phones, GPS, none of that. You basically found a landline, or you had a crazy German mom like me that would whistle for you, and a whistle that, reached out 5 kilometers, right? But this generation, I'd have to wait a week for a TV show. And if it was a rerun, too bad. You waited another week. Now it's stream an entire season, right? My daughter went through X-Men cartoons that, her and I watched back in the 90s together, powered it, over 2 evenings. So yeah, absolutely. Expectations are different, but I still think you can wow millennials with VR. It's just got to cater to interest. Put it this way, like you said, the Apollo experience, probably not going to interest them as much, right? But maybe their favorite band or whatever they like to do, that could. Brindle says, the Tatooine VR one was my favorite experience when I got my Vive. I've also got the HDK2 and the DK1. Those were cool, but there's no patch on the experience of using the Vive. Yeah, exactly. The big 3, you can't go wrong. PlayStation VR, Rift, Vive. And if you've got a Windows mixed reality unit, you're probably in good stead. Youngsters are playing Fortnite. Yeah, and you know what? That fictional line that I talk about, which is a real line, in the sense that that's actually what's happening. The experience that is Fortnite for them, we're going to get to the point where on that line, there's an equivalent experience. There's titles like Onward, they're rougher, they're not as polished, but we will get that Fortnite style experience in VR. It's just a little bit longer of a wait. Sure, the Rift is great too with touch controllers. Yep. Jim Hall, would you rather show someone an inexpensive wireless Oculus Go experience or the more expensive wired to a PC headset? The simplicity of the Go is appealing to the average consumer. Yeah, and I think that was Jawa's, concern with it. You don't want necessarily to have that be their first experience and then have them be underwhelmed, is what he's saying. And I get that. But again, if you're out there and you've got the Go, you said it yourself, it's a good way to get the average consumer reeled in. And then while they're experiencing it or afterwards, you let them know, hey, look, this is just a mobile. The tethered, way, way more powerful. You can do this, this, and this. What are you interested in? Oh, well, you can do this, right? You'd sell it more that way. But it is a good way to reel them in. Stu says, my mom loves Doctor Who, been watching it. Yeah, PBS, exactly. I watched it on a channel back west, KVOS TV 12. And they would take all the episodes and movie length them, so you didn't have to wait. All right. Hogwarts in VR. See, everybody has that awesome nostalgic thing, right? For this person, it's Hogwarts. Exactly. And we're all going to get catered to eventually. Who doesn't love Harry Potter? Yeah, Chris says. Jim Hall, for someone who has never tried VR, they will be just as impressed with the less capable. It's when you go backwards that it feels, yeah, those really bad knockoff units, I'm not even going to give them the time of the day by mentioning them, but we all know what we're talking about. Yeah, that would be a disservice. When I was in elementary school, I wore bell-bottoms. Me as well. Go for chucks with older kids that can handle something like raw data. Don't bore them with the lab. Exactly. And that you nailed it, Gopher. That's the point. Again, you worded it much better than I did in my long-winded roundabout way, is cater to them with whatever, is going to pique their interest. And you're right. Raw data is going to do it where the lab probably wouldn't. Quality sleeves. I read that wrong. I thought my brother exclusively plays, and then I substituted the G with a P psychosomatically. But yes, Gorn, you mean. Gorn is hilarious. I did a quick look on that many, many months ago. Using somebody's arm against them, that's pure win. And when his friend tried the Rift, he played nothing but Gorn and only took 2-minute breaks. Yeah, that is a game. It never gets old to me. It's immensely satisfying. Gorn, if you've never tried it, guys, it's a Roman gladiatorial style game, cartoony over-the-top graphics, and cartoony over-the-top graphics in terms of violence, too. Fantastic. And here we go. I'm going to go probably another 10 minutes, guys, then we're going to wrap it up. Again, really appreciate you guys dropping by. I'm just going to try to get through the rest of these questions here. So, brother exclude. Oh, yeah, we saw that. Testing a VR game. Fortnite. I'm surprised that hotel booking sites have not jumped on the VR bandwagon. So, this is Captain Carrot. Surprised that hotel booking sites haven't jumped on the VR bandwagon. It would be awesome to experience your room and views when looking for accommodation. Yeah, I've seen it with some. But unfortunately, and somebody pointed this out earlier, a lot of it is still that primitive 360-degree fish lens stuff. That's also going to get better, but I have seen some hotels do it. But a lot of it is just ignorance. There's a lot of businesses out there that still don't know what VR is capable of. And that, I think, is the danger. It's the reason why all of us are here for VR. It's mostly gaming, let's be honest. But there's a danger in marketing it, or the perception that it's a gaming technology. Because, like I covered in the VR show, which I released a couple of hours ago, I talk about VR training. That is going to be so powerful, so changing how trades are taught. It's going to blow away, pretty much anything we get excited about in gaming. It's really going to change the world. And there's a lot of institutes, educational, facilities, bodies that aren't even aware of its potential. But it's getting there. Very hard to explain how to use controls while outside of VR. So anything that is visually beautiful, you don't have to. Yeah, exactly. So Ray's saying, sometimes the picture is worth the 1,000 words in VR. Let them experience the visuals. Don't get into the techno-babble of the controls. And I would agree. But again, it depends on the people, right? My kid was raised with a mouse in hand and just watching her mouse around. I mean, it's like second nature. Whereas an older person, they still type like that, right? Not even 10 finger. You don't want to overwhelm them with controls for sure. Some of my friends bought in with CV1, while for others, they saw the potential. Yeah, exactly. It's not good enough for them. But I can guarantee you, we will get to a point where it is good enough for them. One of the common complaints I still hear is the bulkiness on the head. Having that HMD. Some people just don't want something on their head. No matter how amazing it is, they don't want it. Shane says he's waiting to see some consumer products other than games. The Chilton's vehicle repair manuals with real world. Oh yeah. So he's talking about the Chilton's ones, which I recognize because my one of my younger brothers, I'm the oldest, he's 2 years younger. He owns his own garage. He's a car mechanic by trade. And he's mentioned that to me, how awesome it would be to have the Chiltons. And we'll get there, but I can almost guarantee you it's not for lack of, desire. It's just probably ignorance. I bet you there's nobody at Chilton's that even knows, which is a shame, because here's probably what's going to happen. It's kind of how the Yellow Pages, they missed their boat ride, right? Or some of BlackBerry, another example, where they're so into their technology, they don't notice the evolution around them, and they miss the boat literally. BlackBerry was victim to that, the Yellow Pages, and the same thing here with Chilton, because you would think the next natural thing for them to do is an app in VR doing exactly that. Chilton stuff. Start with really common models. Start selling it. They could be right in at the top. The scale in VR videos have to be fixed. It's way off. Yeah, some are better than others, but I agree. Scale is still an issue. And that's, I think, what impressed me so much with the Wave VR is they have really nailed scale. The graphics are still a bit primitive. They're not very complex textures. Think Windlands, even a bit more primitive, but super colorful, the Tripatron style graphics. But scale, presence, they nailed it. They nailed it. Quality Sleeve says, I know G doesn't like to plug, but please hit like, Rob says. Thanks, Rob. Hi, mate. Love your show. PKGKRB Power says, thanks, man. Appreciate it. And then Quality Sleeves, back to that. True, it's funny how the past people would fantasize about this kind of stuff, but when it comes out for just a few $100s, nobody takes advantage. Yeah. And I think sometimes it's an expectation gap. Other times it's ignorance. There are still so many people, I'll mention the word VR, they don't know. Or they know about VR, but they're not making the connection to units actually being out there. And I hate to say it and sound like I'm constantly slagging on them, but I still think, I don't care if it's Facebook with Oculus or HTC with Vive or Sony with PlayStation VR, I think if we were grading them on marketing, none of them would get passing grades, period. I think they all miss the boat on marketing. You get the odd thing, seems like a spark, but all in all, they've done a piss poor job of marketing VR. And I think part of it is not knowing how to use old school marketing and apply it to VR versus maybe not being creative enough to market things in a new way. But whatever the reason, it's been piss poor, in my opinion. Epic's getting those sweet Sony bucks. Looking at the browser window. LOL's Jake. What's that? Did I leave something up with the Sony bucks? Maybe not. Did when it came out. Impressions scale-wise. Yeah, after seeing Wrench, I can imagine car mechanics simulated in VR. Exactly, Rob. We've seen other apps that do it. But guys, I had it in tonight's episode. Rob's talking about Wrench, which... check it out. Look up the trailer, whatever, but watch it. It's amazing. The dev purposely made it a point to just pay the most meticulous detail to every single part of the engines that he covers in Wrench. Whether it's torque on a ratchet, individual bolts, everything is scaled almost perfectly. It really will show you. Shane, you were talking about Chilton. It's possible based on Wrench. Absolutely, yeah, agreed. Fantastic. The scale in Minecraft. Minecraft VR is one of those titles. I've played it pretty much on every single one of my platforms, and I think universally they've done a pretty good job. Even the original hacks, there were a couple of options, and they had strengths that outweighed the weaknesses for sure. Fluke says, and yeah, probably 8 minutes, guys. I'm gonna wrap it here. I am starving. Try this in a mono video, close one eye, launch the... Oh, yeah, exactly. Ray did awesome. I guess my question is, does a high-end graphic card make a difference? I have a GTX 1060 6 gig. So PKGKRB asks, his question is, does high-end graphic card make a big difference? I have a GTX 1060 6 gigabyte. With virtual reality, with most games on the PC platform, it's GPU centric, right? How fast your GPU is most of your frame rate. The CPU, past a certain point, single-digit percentage differences for most titles. There's always exceptions. But I would say for VR, yeah, there's differences. It scales absolutely. Like if you were to go from a 1060 to one of the newer cards, night and day, even to a 1080 Ti, you'd notice a difference depending on the type of VR experience. Where would you notice it? Title like Fallout 4, how would you notice it? You're able to set that many more graphical options on high. But one of the things that I always caution people, this has been my experience, I don't know if you guys agree, but there's a lot of traditional pancake graphic settings that just don't translate to VR, that don't frickin' make much of a difference. For example, AA, anti-aliasing. In pancake gaming, it's huge. To a certain point, it makes a difference in VR. Beyond a certain point, I don't think it's as important. I think some of the other, the smoothness of the frame rate, the scale of the experience, the scope of the experience, how far out you can see, those things are more impressive and more noticeable than some of the other graphical options. So back to your question, 1060 is going to run a lot of stuff really, really well, but there are titles, Elite Dangerous is another one example, super sampling. That's huge in VR. Super sampling is one of those things that makes a huge difference. You can crank that super sampling on the 1080 Ti that much higher, and the experience, yeah, it's night and day. You could potentially go from what's blurry on your 1060 to crisp, clear, and vibrant on a 1080 Ti. But bang for the buck, right? Depending on how much you got, what your budget is, at this point, I'd almost say wait. I would say wait. Don't bother with a 1080. Go for that next gen. VR was marketed like condoms, Gopher says, under the water. Exactly. You nailed it. Yep. Jawa, Half-Life 3 with Knuckles would be a platform seller. Absolutely. Where the hell is that? Again, you talk about marketing. What is Valve thinking? They had this opportunity. Here they are in bed with HTC. And they had this opportunity with games to bring something truly special. They brought some of it. Half-Life 3, that was such a no-brainer. Come on, guys. I'm not even going to wax on that one right now. I'm just going to get all irritated. CJ, okay, buddy, he's out. Look for show next weekend. Thanks, CJ. Appreciate you dropping by. Yeah, I'm almost out here too, guys. I'm just going to finish up to Gigaman. Lightbringer, same in the front end. Oculus for Go, depending on the scene you choose. With both eyes open, you appear too far above the ground. Yeah, there's some calibration things, but when you get the calibration knocked down, or locked down rather, it's pretty good. Porting the Valve catalog over is a game changer. Back to what I was saying about retrofitting old IP. Exactly, Gopher. There's such a back catalog. Look at Portal. They gave us proof that Portal is fantastic in VR via a 20-minute, 30-minute techno demo. Why did the entire Portal not get converted to VR? They proved it can be done. They proved it was awesome. And then they just let it go stagnant. That I don't understand. But again, you want to talk bad marketing? Right there. Case in frickin' point. Have the 1080 from the 970 and it made a huge difference. Exactly, Stu. Yeah. 780 Ti. It was still great. Frame drops. Yeah, hey man, just got the last minute of this. Hope to catch it sooner. Yeah, Chris, I'll announce it on the next one. I'm trying to figure out how scheduling works with the event, but still have it be able to run through OBS. Got my company to purchase a Vive and use it for marketing. Awesome, Gigaman. That's cool. There you go. And Stu, Epix, do you think adding another 1080 would be even better? No, not at this point. They're going to. They're working on it. The newer cards especially with stereoscopic rendering. Most people just assume that SLI would benefit VR because it uses a technique called alternate frame rendering. One frame on one GPU, the next frame on the other GPU, and then it alternates, right? That's SLI in a 101 super quick nutshell. The problem is in VR, stereoscopic rendering is different. It's how the scene looks from each of your eyeballs. So your left eyeball is going to see things skewed just a little bit like that, and your right the other way. They never made that connect. So SLI wasn't really benefiting at all. But moving forward, I expect we are going to get benefits when they get that to sync up properly. 280 benchmarks. Yeah, you've got the 1080 Ti cap, so you're in pretty good waters. I've got the 1080 Founders Edition, so for me, the 2080 Ti is still a bit of a bump up, right? Because there's 25% between me and you, 1080 Founders to Ti. Thanks, Lord Balders. Later, Epics. All right, guys, I think we're wrapping up here. There's a Portal 2 VR Experience mod on Steam if you own the game. Thanks, Jawa. I got to check that out, and I'll actually talk about that. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap it up. I really appreciate you guys dropping by. Thank you so much. Remember, I do have a VR show that I launched a couple of hours before this stream, this week's episode. Make sure you check that out and hit that like button, make a comment, etc., all that stuff. Guys, we'll end it there. As always, cheers. And now the delay when I hit stop streaming.